Greetings, class. We are still in Chapter 8, Section 3. I am on page 443 of your e-text. These are the more exercises at the end of the section. When we worked number 5, they did not give you any individual data for the paired samples. So I wanted to look at question number 12 because first of all we can open it in StatCrunch, and then secondly they gave us the individual data for each pair. So let's look at this. It says a coach claims that a baseball clinic will help players raise their batting averages. The table shows the batting averages of 14 players before participating in the clinic and 2 months after participating in the clinic. We know that alpha is 0.5, and we want to know, is there enough evidence to support the coach's claim? Now, we have to figure out how to write the coach's claim, because when we look at the coach's claim, and I'm going to bring this up in Word, mu sub d, I'm just going to tell you that mu sub d is equal to the mean for D1, the differences in sample 1, minus the mean for D2. Now, if the coach claims that the clinic will help players raise their batting averages, then that's D2 is going to be bigger than D1. So what that means, so I'm going to just paste this down here. Oh, I didn't mean to put it there. I'm going to go back and repeat this. By definition, mu sub d, the mean of the differences, is equal to the mean for the first sample minus the mean for the second sample. Now, the coach claims that a basketball clinic will help players raise their batting average. That tells you that the mean for D2, he expects that to be greater than the mean for D1. And when you subtract a bigger number from a smaller number, you're going to get a number that is greater than 0. Now, what this tells us, because there's no equality there, he didn't say, he didn't say they were the same or more. He said they would be raised. That means more. So this one actually has to be H sub A. So as a result, we have H sub O, and that's our mu sub D. See if I can get that to, it doesn't like to scoot down. If I can get it to scoot. It is not wanting to scoot down. All right, so I'm back. The null hypothesis has to use the complement of this greater than sign. So I'm going to insert a symbol here, and I'm going to insert less than or equal to, because that's the complement of greater than, less than or equal to 0. And then our H sub A is going to be mu sub D, again, greater than 0. So we have our null and our hypothesis, and the H sub A is our claim. So we have identified H sub O and H sub A, and which one was the claim. Now, once you have identified the null and alternative hypothesis, which we've done, and identified which one was the claim, we now need to go in and actually determine some information for the test statistic. First of all, we typically find the critical values, T sub 0, or T sub O, and we use the T calculator and the H sub A inequality. In this case, since it's greater than, that would be on your right, so this is going to be a right-tailed test. And alpha In this case, 0.05. So I'm going to try to, let's see if I can get StatCrunch up. And so I've got the two pictures side by side. We're going to go to Stat, Calculators, T calculator. Now I know it's going to be a right-tailed, so it's going to be greater than or equal, just like the symbol here is greater than, so I have no choice but to do greater than or equal. That's just the way StatCrunch is set up. Alpha is 0.05. So that's our value for alpha. Now we need our degrees of freedom. Well, we've got to look back to the original problem, and the problem was that there were 14 players. So our degrees of freedom would be 1 less than 14, or 13. And when we click compute, we see that we have this t value of this t value of 1.7709. So I'm going to copy that, and I'll bring it up here to my Word doc. So T sub O is equal to 1.771 to 3 decimal places. So that's my critical value from the T calculator. So I'm going to close that. Now, after we've done that, we need to calculate the standardized test statistic. Now this is going to be a t-stat, but it's going to be with pairs this time. So we need to open this problem in StatCrunch. I'm going to go back to number 12, and we're going to open it in StatCrunch. So you see the before the baseball clinic and their batting averages after the clinic. So I said we were going to do a t-stat, so I go to Stat, t-stats, but this is paired. Now, sample 1 is the before, sample 2 is the after. And I want to save the differences because you need that for a couple of the problems that you're going to do for your homework. So let's save the differences. The claim, or actually H sub A, is greater than. So when I come down here to H sub A, I have to change that to greater than. And the value for mu sub D is 0. So I leave this as 0. Change that to greater than, and then I think I'll go ahead and store that information in the data table. So when I click compute, you'll see that the t-stat, so I'm going to just put that, is t is equal to negative 0.431. We'll say to 3 decimal places. And then we have these differences here that we're going to look back at here in just a moment to do some calculations. So I'm going to bring that graph, bring that t-graph back up, the one where we did the calculator, t, and we had 13 degrees of freedom, and alpha was 0.05. And but P had to be greater than or equal to 0.05. It was a right-tailed test, and that's where we got that 1.77. And so what we have to ask ourselves is T in the rejection region? And that would be anything that would be greater than 1.771, that T sub 0, that critical value that we looked at before. So you ask yourself, is negative 0.431 greater than 1.771? Well, the answer to that is no. So we are not in the rejection region. So we fail to reject H sub O. And I just want to come back over here and show you about the rejection region. Rejection region is 1.77. That's this boundary right here. And anything that was in the red, anything bigger than 1.77, we would reject. But we got a t-statistic of negative. It's barely over here, negative 0.4. Like here's negative 1. So 0.4 would be right in about here, negative 0.4. That's nowhere near the rejection region over here in the red. So we fail to reject H sub O. Now, what does that tell us about question number 12 then? When the coach claims that the baseball clinic will help players. Well, if we fail to reject H sub O, we have no support for his claim. So we would have to say, sorry, I've got to go down. There is no evidence at the 5% level of significance to support the coach's claim that the baseball clinic will raise their batting averages. So we have no evidence to support that because we failed to reject H sub O. The only way we would have had evidence to support this claim is if we had rejected H sub O, but we didn't. So we have no evidence at the 5% level of significance to support the coach's claim. I was only able to get through number 12. I really wanted to get through one more problem for you for section 8.3 and because it's a two-tailed. So I'm going to do one more video for a two-tailed test, and we're going to look at problem number 18. I don't have time to add it to this video.